Is it possible to find motivated sellers even in tiny, tiny niches? My name is Marco Palmero. I focus on originating deals on behalf of private equity groups, search funds, companies that want to acquire assets, and I do that globally with my team. In this video, I want to talk about very small niches because we had a few calls with search funds and other private investors that wanted to acquire assets in very narrow niches, and they were wondering whether or not it was possible to find motivated sellers in such a tiny niche. We're talking about, 1,000 companies, 2,000 companies, and so forth. Now, these tiny niches were not only restricted because of the industry itself was very niche, but also because they were addressing a very restricted geographic area and they had a few other criteria that they wanted to filter for, like size and all that stuff. And so a lot of them came to us saying, well, we're not really convinced we can find enough opportunities in this tiny niche. What do you think? Well, there are a few considerations that we need to make when talking about very restricted niches. And the first is, well, how many deals do you need? Because if you just need one acquisition, then a very small niche might be enough, provided you do the right things and you find the right businesses for sale. Then the other consideration might be, what is the cycle that this industry is going through? Is it in a cycle where a lot of owners might have an interest in selling, or is it in a cycle where a lot of them are going to be resistant to an exit? Those things, these trends can be spotted quite easily with a quick market research, and they can really give you insights on whether or not there might be assets available on the market. On average, there might be between 10 and 20% of all companies that are in any given industry listed for sale at any point in time. But we want to understand whether or not we are in a moment of time where we're like in a seller's market or in a buyer's market, so to speak. And that's another consideration for you to make. Then I'd say, well, okay, why are your criteria so restrictive? I mean, is it just because the industry itself is so small, or because you have other criteria that are making you narrow down that niche in such a specific matter? So some people might just want to buy companies that have a certain EBITDA, or that are in just one city, or doing all these sorts of type filtering processes before they actually start talking with business owners. My question in that regard would be, are these filters like unchangeable? So are they absolutely a deal breaker, or broadening the geography or being more flexible on the EBITDA can help you increase the amount of targets that you might be looking at? Those are just considerations, of course, because the main question that we started with is it possible to find motivated sellers in a very restricted niche? And the answer, before I actually get into this topic of broadening up the niche, is yes, absolutely. I mean, we sourced deals where we had industries that were just 2,000 companies, and we found 10, 20, 30, 40 deals in that specific niche. Now, there's a paradox there, which is, if the niche is unknown or relatively unknown, it might actually be even better from a sourcing perspective, because less people are targeting it or would have targeted it in the past. So if you're just going after, I don't know, clinics in California, aesthetic clinics, certainly a lot of people thought about the idea of buying a aesthetic clinic in California in the past. But if you're going against, I don't know, measuring companies or something crazy, I don't know, door manufacturers, for example, in a specific state, those might be niches that not a lot of people have targeted in the past. And as a consequence, they might be relatively virgin, if you want to say so. And then business owners that received messages about an exit are going to be way less. Now, why am I saying all this? Well, because that is going to increase the response rate that you get from these people, provided they're interested, because there's going to be less of a problem around saturation of the market and more just a problem around whether or not this guy is interested or not. And so it becomes less of an issue of how good you are at writing your outreach messages or getting in contact with off-market deals. And it's more a question of, are these guys ultimately motivated in selling? So generally speaking, if you're targeting a very saturated niche where a lot of people are buying businesses into, the first problem that you need to solve for is, how do I differentiate myself in such a way that people that receive my message alongside messages from other buyers, how do I make sure mine stands out and they actually reply to me? That's step number one. Then, of course, they need to be interested, and then we need to go through all the process of filtering them and kind of like you know, getting an LOI signed and so forth. If the niche is not saturated, then you don't have that problem, that initial problem, around standing out, because fundamentally just saying that you're looking to buy a business in that industry is going to be a good enough message for you to stand out, because these guys never received that message before. And so I guess the point I'm getting at is, yes, it's possible to find businesses for sale in very tiny niches, especially if they haven't been targeted before. Of course, some of you might say, well, if they've been targeted before, then they're not really a niche. But you would be surprised of how many niches have been tapped by a lot of private equity groups and search funds in the past, because this game of acquiring businesses is becoming more and more popular. And so it becomes increasingly difficult to find good niches where you can fish, right? But the point is, first is, again, the niche itself, independently of how small it is, you can find businesses in there. And the beauty of businesses for sale is that there are always going to be business owners that at some point are going to be interested in exiting their business, because they're heading toward retirement, because they have life issues, family issues, they want to transition, they want to do a bunch of different things. That is going to happen sooner or later. It's just a matter of being in the game long enough to understand how this cycle works for that specific niche, and then understanding what type of outputs and kind of like outcomes can you expect out of your sourcing activities. Because of course, if you just get a few deals a year, you might say, well, I might just focus on another niche because I'm not going to get enough deals to ultimately get one done. But if every 3 months new businesses come up for sale in that niche, and you don't get many, but every few months you have opportunities that are becoming available, then you might say, okay, how many deals do I need to ultimately find one that has a chance of closing? Let's say it's 20. Okay, in what time frame am I going to get these 20 deals? You might say 6 months. Okay, am I willing to go through the path of sourcing deals for 6 months and then getting these 20 opportunities to see what comes out of it? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you know that you can source deals profitably in that particular niche. And again, it all comes down to the market itself. And a lot of the questions that you might be asking around a specific niche, nobody actually knows until you start reaching out to these business owners. Many people might say, well, I know I can find businesses for sale in such niche or in any given industry, but the reality of it is nobody knows because you can just talk about data and trends, but when you go down and you cannot execute on it, it becomes a question of, are these people interested or not? Are they at a phase or a moment in time where they're ultimately interested in taking this big leap in making this big change in their life and ultimately exit their company? If they're not, then fine. You might need to wait for a longer period of time, or the niche itself might not be good for you to pursue for a set amount of time. But the point is, every niche, independently of how small it is, will have businesses for sale at one point or another. The question becomes, is the niche that you're targeting good for you at this present time? Because of course you cannot wait for 2, 3, 4 years for that niche to mature if you want to pursue it and buy a business in a reasonable time frame. And so you can make the only way you can get that answer is start reaching out to the niche itself and see what kind of outcomes you get out of it. And the beauty of targeting a small niche and finding deals in it is that it is relatively quick to get the answers you need. Because if you just target, I don't know, a niche that has 2,000 businesses in it, you can reach out to them in a few weeks, really, and maybe even less than that. And then you got all the answers you need. You see how many replied, how many were interested, how many solid conversation came out of it, how many meetings you got. And then you can understand, okay, is it worthwhile for us to follow up with the other people because we see traction and folks that might be interested 30, 60, 90 days later? Or is it just pointless and we should just focus our attention on another niche? From that perspective, if you're targeting small niches, you can really get quick feedback and adjust, test multiple niches, and then identify the one that has the chance of delivering the best outcomes to you. Ultimately, again, 10-20% of businesses across any industry are going to be up for sale. Just a matter of understanding whether or not you are at that moment in time where these companies have been listed or are in the process of considering an exit. And if that is the case, that you can double down on a niche and make the most out of it, really, because chances are, if it is a niche, very few people are going to compete against you for that particular deal. And again, we source deals for people in very tiny niches. We're talking about a single city or 2,000 companies maximum, really very, very narrow niches. And we found deals in there, more or less, depending on, again, where the industry was in the cycle. But the point is, you can find deals and you can find them on your own. You can get guidance from people like us on how to build a system to find them so that you can test multiple niches and get the outcomes that you need. Or you can just outsource it, again, to someone like us or somebody else that will find the deals for you and then get the outcomes directly delivered to your door, so to speak. So that's my take on niches. It is certainly possible to find deals, just a matter of understanding the niche itself, testing it, and then if it works, doubling down on it.